Hello again. So, I wanted to get into and start off where everyone can start off at. As my previous videos basically showed on Roblox Studio, the starting point, part 1 through 4, they're extremely starting pieces to using the full Roblox Studio system. Um, Definitely recommended for anyone that's not used Roblox Studio. Maybe you've been playing Roblox games, but you haven't touched the studio yet, so you're not sure how to navigate. That's where you want to start. Otherwise, if you're ready to code, this is where we begin slowly to dive into Lua, the coding language of Roblox itself. And we're going to see just how objects are, um, well, influenced by code. How just by creating a world in the 3D case doesn't quite fulfill the whole game experience because most games are, well, a game requires a function, something to happen. But when you don't have code, nothing happens. So whatever you create essentially stays the same. But for most of us, we want to create something. We want to have an effect. Something happens to us, or when we do something, walking around, experiencing damage being taken, um, given, etc. Right? So, especially in obbies, we're going to start with something simple. So, our starting point here is going to be classic obby. In the previous part 1 through 4, I've essentially kind of worked with the modern city example. It was a pretty cool new map, and they do have a new one as well. That's what over here, which is a pretty cute little environment. I really like this. I was playing around with it, so I want to make it completely functional. I want to make the Ferris wheel spin and a bunch of other things. So one of these days, I'm gonna actually go in here and start programming, um, opening doors too. I've noticed a lot of these games don't really have the ability to go inside of the buildings, which is kind of a shame. But I guess that saves on processing in a way. So potentially it's a good and a bad thing. So I'm gonna see if I can have a video where I'm just gonna like essentially open up one of these um, template worlds into something a bit more like this door doesn't open, you can't go into tents, this Ferris wheel doesn't move, and I want to change all that. But for now, we're going to start with templates, and everyone can go here using their own Roblox Studio um, instance application on their own computer. And this is where our beginning is. So we're going to open up our classic obby. And of course, why not start with an obby course? So everyone should be familiar with an obstacle course, short for obby, because obstacle can be a little bit difficult to say sometimes. But we're gonna see a couple of little factors here. We got a trampoline block at the end here. Maybe some of you have played on it but haven't seen how the code works. We've got some arrows that are pointing in the direction of the push. So there's some act of code that's pushing us to the left here. And then over there, there's an action up to the right. And then, of course, we got to jump over these blocks. Otherwise, well, you're going to get hurt type of block. So I'm going to start off. Do I really want to show you this? It's pretty straightforward, right? I'm not going to show you the details here. I'm going to actually just start coding in. Well, there is a case to show something, but I'm gonna have to like run the game um, in a specific situation to actually show the humanoid um, individual, which is the actual player. Because right now, players is empty. The world only has the particular pieces given to us, and etc. Right? So we're not going to use the toolbox here, so we're not going to go into any creative set of details. But don't make it go away, I guess. Toolbox, yeah, pops up in the same place. Can I move this off? Wish I can just, oh wait, hold on. Can I minimize? Collapse. Collapse. There we go. Okay, cool. So I'll collapse that for now. That's a new one, I think. I don't think I was able to do that before. So, all right. First case scenario. Most, if not yet, should know that there are parts. There's blocks, spheres, wedges, corners, and cylinders. Those are the basic shapes, and everything you see here is basically this. This is basically why Roblox started off so blocky and Lego-like, because most individuals that were playing around with it didn't quite create their own models, which you can do, not in here though. Um, what you can do is use Blender, a third-party application, to create 3D models and then throw them in here. Depending on the vertices and complexity, it could work good or against you, depending on some factors of that, the complexity of the model. But in most cases, it can work pretty good. Otherwise, all of these are essentially just blocks. I don't think there's any cylinders or wedges. Mm, I guess the first thing we should consider is a start spawn. There's always these little spawn types. Um, they basically look like the star checkpoint. These are checkpoints particularly, but this is the initial spawn point. Oh, so they actually added a decal in here, so we'll check that too. So if we do maybe another, um, didn't really introduce the workspace. Wonder if I can increase the, no, I can't increase the text on that. So the workspace again, as per part 4, is where our main interface is going to be as far as the 3D world we're currently working on. Everything below workspace is kind of an emphasis on materials, objects we haven't loaded yet that reside in the server storage, any scripts that reside on the server side, and a bunch of other factors involved. But when we're working on, let's say, a single player game, it's pretty straightforward to just work in the workspace. And I mean, it's going to be multiplayer in effect because you're going to be hosting it online, but everyone's going to have their own kind of experience happening because there's not going to be any server-wide synchronization. There's not going to be, if we only work in workspace and we don't do anything in, let's say, server script service, then there's not going to be any events that happen for everyone. A door might open just for one player or the current player. So you might see people walking through doors because the door that the person opened in one game sees the door open on their workspace locally on their computer. But the second player in a different country or different state or different place, right? They're connected to the same game. They might still see the door closed because in their workspace, that's not set up to synchronize together. When they open, yours open. That's why sometimes you'll see games where people walk through doors and walls and all kinds of stuff, simply because the game isn't synchronized through everyone's perspective. So the workspace itself is like your perspective. And then the server script service is where we would actually synchronize your perspective to show it to everyone else. It's a little bit more advanced, so we're not going to go into that because we're just starting the coding process. So the start spawn is just an object. If I go to workspace here and I just put spawn, there's a spawn location. You can probably have as many as you want in here. Um, mm, and they basically work based on this one's going to work initially. I'm not sure if I have two of them, what's going to happen. Oh no, I have some 34 studs. No thanks, one stud. Thank you. All right. So one stud movement there on the move value. I mean, let me see if I just play it now. Since this was the initial spawn, this is gonna be the initial spawn, but I don't think that's gonna function, simply because this was the first spawn there. You can program that differently, and you can basically spawn on any object. This is just kind of a shortcut block that was created for quick spawns for anyone just to start at a certain location. Oh, that's cool. They added a little measurement tool in the angles and corners. All right, so that's it there. This is kind of an emulated spawn. It's not actually a spawn block, and this is kind of how it works, right? You've got the decal of a spawn. However, it's working a little bit differently because there is an actual script involved here. So notice how this hierarchy of folders, objects, and then script, this is essentially how we store all of our grouped um, relative values. Um, and in this case, I'm gonna say that when I double click here, there we go. Okay, cool. And I think this is a little too much just yet to start taking it apart. Because it's a lot of more, let's see, parent first, we'll get player from character, yeah, checkpoint data, humanoid roof, wait for, yeah, CF frames way too advanced yet. So we're not going to go into detail on all the details here, but this is, or the case of double clicking your checkpoint script, this is how you're going to enter any script visible. And just remember that when you open a script, you're not closing down the world. That's still available in tab 1. Tab 2 is now checkpoint script. And then as we continue opening scripts, we're going to create more tabs. So this is just going to work in the same way. And all it's doing is that every time you touch one of these, your next spawn becomes that block. So there's a way to save, right? So again, you don't have to make the spawn location to make a spawn. However, it's the quickest way to do it because you saw that code. For most, it's very difficult to write that code. So they just use the spawn location block to basically do the same thing. All right, so let's check out our little conveyor to the left. And then we got to the right. Oh, actually, they're probably just rotated, maybe. Let's see. So again, we've got our block here. Biggest help that you can work with, press F often. When you press the F button on your keyboard, you basically focus in on the block you're looking at. So very, very nice, very quick to navigate, especially if you just kind of go from your um yeah, you go from your Explorer because your Explorer itself it's going to really have everything as long as you've organized it. And this is one of the biggest things I mentioned in the first parts is that being organized is going to have you have much more fun than, well, having files everywhere, right? So let's open this up. We've got a script with some configuration. So let's check out what that looks like. Isn't that nice? This is much, much better. So let's take apart what's happening here line by line. First, every single time we create a script that we want to attach, and it's natural for us to put a script inside of the block itself, and by inside, it's like a sub file, just like you'll see again in the file system. It's like a folder, and then inside the folder, you have script, surface, GUI, and configuration. But it's really a part object, a 3D object, and then inside of that object, we are attaching script, surface, GUI, and configuration. So whichever way you want to think of it, we're really thinking it more as a parent-child process. So the parent is conveyor, and the children are script, surface, GUI, and configuration. And a conveyor has a parent called the folder conveyors, and then of course the conveyors folder is has a parent as well called the workspace, the final parent possible. So in our little conveyor, we want to create a variable. Now, this is a general programming concept, so I don't want to go into the theoretics of it, but you can think of a conveyor or a variable as essentially a box. A box with a label. The label is conveyor, and we can name this anything we want. For simplicity, we've named it conveyor. And what that means is we want to store something in this box. Every time we use a variable, it's empty until we put an equal sign. This equal sign is saying, all right, well, what are we going to place inside of this variable? And this is another piece of info we should analyze. First, local just means local to this specific file. This variable should not exist outside, so it's very good and appropriate unless you plan for a variable to be accessible everywhere to basically use the keyword local so it doesn't leak outside to other scripts. Because remember, we're going to have scripts all over the place. We're going to have a script here, a script there. So it just helps us isolate the script variables so they don't overlap each other and then mess each other up. In this case, we don't really need much because what we're doing is we're referencing the script currently being talked about. The keyword script, let me zoom in a little bit here. The keyword script is literally just a reference to the object script file, the text script file that we've created or we have here. It's just its own self-referenced. I am here. It's like saying I, right? If I am this script file, then script is a reference to I, and then dot is just a reference to another relationship to that particular file. And in this case, it's the parent. So we're going to basically say the script file has a parent. Whatever that parent is, save it into conveyor, local conveyor, the variable. And in this case, all it's saying is, hey, what's the parent of script? It's conveyor, the actual block object that we saw in the 3D, right? So what that means is we're just literally saving this block that exists in 3D into this variable here. So now we can control that block, but it always starts with something like this, script.parent. Now, we don't have to always use script.parent, and of course, we don't always have to basically use one script file for every single one of these. It's pretty effective. There's more effective ways to do it as well, but it comes with more complicated scripting. So for now, this is the easiest, most straightforward way to basically save the 3D object that the script is a child of into a variable. And then from there, we change some values. Now, there are some configurations here. Okay. Yeah. All right. So configuration, is that like a custom name configuration? Yeah, parent data. Oh, it's just data. Okay, so you see a little cog like this. It's a reference to just data that we have available. Um, it's like another variable, a box with info in it, but it's outside of the actual script. So it's changeable by hand. We can go over here and change the value and increase the speed of that particular conveyor. But in reference, this is being used right here. So here's conveyor, the actual block that we saved. Configuration means we're going inside of the configuration space here. So from conveyor, we're going inside of configuration, and then we're going to go to speed, and then we're going to take value, which is going to be 10. So this whole thing basically equates to us saying -10, right here. But if we just put -10 now, we ruin the flexibility of the script because now we'd have to go back into the actual script to change that to 11, 12, 13, 14. We'd have to open up this script file every single time. Otherwise, we only have to go to speed and change the speed here, and that'll automatically change the script file for us. So this is a good practice for values that you want flexible enough to change, not just to stay the same, maybe change over time. maybe change with difficulty of a specific game choice, or the more you complete something, the harder it gets. Well, the faster this conveyor belt's gonna get, sort of deal. So anytime you have that sort of variable change, remember, variable is just a word for non-stationary, non-static number. Well, that's dynamic, really. So a dynamic change, but a variable is that ability for that to change. Then we're essentially going to use a placeholder like this, a configuration data, and then the speed piece. Okay, that's all this is. This is just kind of like that, nothing too crazy, but we can essentially achieve the same thing here. But what's actually happening here? All right. Well, conveyor, the actual block itself, has something called velocity. Well, I can't see it here because this is the script file, but if I click on conveyor here, now we have specific details about the block. The block itself was purple, brick colored. There it is, purple too, plastic material, interesting, brick in color. Oh, well, yeah, bright violet. Okay, cast shadow, fine. Not transparent, fine. Archivable, if it's this and its descendants can be cloned using instance clone. Okay, so yeah, archivable is clonable. We can change the name, we can change the parent, but really the thing we're looking for here is where is it at? Where is it at? Shape, collision, can't touch. Normally we also want to have should be a velocity in here. All right. Hmm. Maybe it's an added then. Assembly linear velocity. Interesting. There's some things we can do to check this out. Oh, they removed the surface GUI? I guess they only use that surface GUI during editing, and then during the gameplay you don't notice it. That makes sense. Okay, so one of these is going to change. Assembly, linear, velocity, conveyor, C-frame, vector to world space, vector, C-frame. All right, so I'm not going to get too much into C-frames. That's kind of a new set there. Because in the end, C-frames are going to be more on the case of objects in the 3D space, how they can be moved, teleported, rotated, and 3D space includes X, Y, Z. So that's a little bit of a mathematical process there for us to handle, something to basically explore in the future when it comes to it. But what vector to world space means is that irregardless of the direction the user is facing, it's basically always going to be relative to the world itself. So even if you're facing left, that's not going to change the way that this vector is pointing. And a vector is like an arrow, a direction, right? So in this case, a direction would be on the case of the z-axis. This is the z um, input value. X and Y are 0, so we're not changing it. Y is normally up. Uh, X should be forward and backwards, and Z, I guess, is left and right. So we can also check that here. Something like that. I mean, technically, X, Z, Y. Yeah, see, Z would technically be this way, but it's an odd playthrough. Uh, you play around with each object. I mean, if it was the world perspective, you'd be moving X to the negative 10 to push it that way. That would be my assumption, is you pushing X to the negative 10. So it's not going to be as direct. But if you want it to be stationary, meaning you don't want it to move around, you're going to use the vector to world space. It's a function, right? So what's happening here is we're taking the C-frame of that box, that conveyor block, and we're attaching it to a vector to world space sort of directional movement. And we're adding in this new vector movement where we're creating the movement direction here with the XYZ values. And then here, of course, we're disabling any visuals. We're going to check that out as well. The real meat here is the KillBrick. This is the more interesting one and the one that we can actually take much more bigger dive into the code because it's pretty straightforward and it gives us a good amount of code to work with here. All right. Mm, script.parent.touched. So this is similar, and in a way, script.parent is used again, which is nice. But we didn't use it in this form, which is okay, because in this case, notice how many times we're using conveyor. Here, 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 and here, right? But when we're using this format, we don't have to use script parent again. You can reuse script.parent over and over and over again, but in the end, it's going to get a little redundant. So that's why we kind of use a shortcut by saving it into a variable and then using it just with the keyword conveyor instead of script parent.cframe, script parent.configuration, script parent.surface GUI enabled, yeah, etc. So it saves us some typing. But here, there's a particular reason we're not using a variable, which we still can, but we're attaching a touched event, which normally means that it's waiting for something to touch it. And when we find a activator for that touch, we're going to connect with the colon, just like we did before, with the C-frame connection here, right? We're going to take the C-frame, connect it to this vector movement. Well, here we're going to take the touched signal when something actually touches it, and we're going to connect that to a function. Functions are also another kind of idea behind variables and blocks of details condensed into a single group, like a whole block 3D block into a single variable, but here it's like multiple pieces of code, and it's a little bit, I guess we can rewrite this to make it more sense on the classical way. Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. So let's say we do it in a different way. Let's say we do script dot, we do KillBrick equals to script dot parent, and then we can do function hit what am I missing here? Oh, right, the name of it. So function hurt. Okay, so here, then we can basically take this code, place it in here. So you'll see nothing actually changes. And then we have to finalize it with the KillBrick dot touched connect hurt. So that essentially does the same thing. Let me kind of also forget what a comment looks like here. What's a comment look like here? Aha, double. Yeah, it is the kill script, but why would I do that? Let's see, yeah, kill script v2, whatever. So here's the separation, right? The original code that they gave you versus a bit more of a classical programming approach. Classical as in you're still learning how to program and you don't know any shortcuts yet. So what really happened here is they condensed all of these lines here into how many we got? 9 to 17, uh, uh, 8. Well, math brain. 8 lines into 4, or not even because these are just endings. So 3. I guess if we counted that, it's going to be less. So 8 to 4. So they halved their lines, but they made it a little bit more confusing in the end. But here's what actually happens here versus what we can really look at here in a more clear manner. First, we take the KillBrick again, script parent. We create a function that defines what our hit's going to look like. We haven't looked at the inside yet, so that's the next case. And then once we define the function hurt with the way it's going to work, then we're going to actually create the KillBrick being attached to that function. And that's basically the same thing as this. Cool. So, and this is somewhere I can actually explain a function a bit better. A function is, again, like a variable that contains something, but in this case, it's the name here, hurt versus KillBrick. Again, we can change these names any way we want. These are just labels. I chose to name this KillBrick. I chose to name this hurt. And in the case here, we also have a little bit of an extra piece. The um, a attribute or a parameter attribute, basically an input that comes through. It's coming through based on the person being hit, right? So it's every time we call this function, we need to identify who it's being hit with. That's a parameter in my head. I'm thinking the wrong thing. And you can have many parameters inside of these pieces here. But for us in this particular case, we just need to know who's being hit or what object is being hit. Um, and a function always has parameters, but a KillBrick doesn't, or a variable doesn't, because it's just a holder for a type of content detail. I mean, in bigger programming languages, you'll consider them integers, strings, decimals, true, falses, etc. Right? Here, it's just for a script parent block. So when we're thinking then, hurt is going to essentially be the same naming convention except with an attachment. So you can always identify what a variable is versus a function with does it have a parenthesis after it. If it has a parenthesis, well, it's going to be a function. I notice here that we don't actually have um, the parentheses resulting in that hit, but that's because it automatically will attach. And we don't have to name this hit too. Um, we can also say thing that gets hit, but that's going to change the way our programming works based on their defined values. So I'm not going to change it to thing because I got to change it everywhere. But that's another thing we're labeling here is when something gets hit, what do you want to name it? And then how are you going to use it within the next parts of your code? All right. Okay, so then we take a look at the further pieces here. We take this apart, and then we're looking at the actual damage value here. First, we have to check something. So we use if statements to basically check if something is a case or not. If you are, um, what, 18 and, um, I guess I've always used this as a programming factor. If you're less than 21 um, and have ID, the and is going to be a little bit of a glue between two things. You have to have two things true. So if you're under 21 but you have ID, you can't get into the club, right? So that's kind of a true false case here. First, something has to be involved with hit, so it's going to be an object, which most cases should be true. So first, hit by itself just means does this exist? Cool, something hit it, it exists. Nice, true. Then we go for and. Then we check, hey, is the hit the parent? So is the parent hitting itself, basically? Um, which shouldn't be, which should be the true? Hold on. And hit that parent. Do we really need all that? Hmm. So is the person's parent. So, okay, so this is the, let's say, okay, because you can touch it with your leg, with your hand, with your head, all kinds of different ways you can touch this object, right? So first, is this object exist? Cool. For then, does it have a parent? Cool. And then, does this parent have a humanoid body. So we have to really take a look at the actual humanoid of the player to understand what's happening here. But basically, your arm, leg, head, whatever, all of it is attached to something called the I think it is a humanoid, or there was a certain naming convention. We'll check it out in a second. And then inside, you'll see the humanoid. So let me just go ahead and do this. Okay. So first, before we check it, notice a few things we're going to start seeing when we're in live. Right now, we don't see any players and we don't see anything here that resembles us. So let's drop ourselves here. It's really hard to just explain until we actually get in. So now we're here. Now here I am. Here's some kind of meta information about me. A backpack for carrying items, starter gear, player GUI that normally gets copied from the starter player, starter pack, starter GUI, right? Those kind of things get copied into each depending on your script. But that doesn't represent us that exist in this actual world right now. What does represent it is still in the workspace. Here, an object that didn't exist before. This object only exists when you're in live mode, which is the player himself. So you're able to essentially figure out what the details are of the actual player or the um, whatchamacallem, player details, I guess. In this case, I forget to mention that the parent will always be the username, and inside the username, you're gonna have body colors, pants, shirts, hat, health, a lot of stat details, animations. There's the head, there's the left foot, the left hand, lower knee arm, yada yada yada, torso, yada yada yada. Um, and then we should be seeing the humanoid in here. Ah, there we go. Humanoid root part. So this is essentially what we're searching for to identify whether an object is a player or just a regular object in the world itself. So every player should have a humanoid root part. So let's say you touch that brick. Well, we're going to have to touch it with our leg. We're basically going to have the hit button. This hit will become, let's say, right foot. So then it's going to say if right foot, true, okay, true. And, which is a requirement. So this has to be true, and the next has to be true, and the next has to be true. So all of these three pieces have to be true in order for us to activate this part here. Why is that not highlighting correctly? This, and this. Yeah. So all of these three pieces have to be true in order for us to actually activate the death of a person, of your humanoid, essentially. So first, if right foot is hit, true. Okay, and the right foot has a parent, that should be the case, right? Which your parent would always be your username. Okay, true. And then you check for hit parent, find first child, humanoid. So it's kind of humanoid root part also, but I guess it can autocomplete for you. And that's gonna do is say, okay, go to hit, which the hit would be the right foot, and then go to parent. So now we're gonna go to crisis 0, and then we're gonna find first child, which basically now is a function that looks through the whole area for a specific name that you place in quotes. And since it's looking for humanoid, aka humanoid root part, that's what it's going to determine to be in existence. And that's going to be also true. So if all these three things are true, then the hit parent humanoid health, which essentially we can take apart, and there's a lot of details in the humanoid root part. Climbing, died, the oof sound. Can I see it? Can I hear it? Give me some oof. Oh, it's not going to give me the oof. No, that's not fair. Anyway, uh, uh, splash, swimming, original size, root attachments, root brick. Guess it's not visible here, and you should. Oh, wait, I'm still searching for velocity. Okay. All right, so once I get out of the filter property, I can take a look back into the total. So make sure you're not searching anything in this little filter properties because it's going to really cut down on the amount of info you see. So now we can actually see what's inside, which in here we should have, in our humanoid root part, we should have extra details like can collide, can touch. Uh, should be health, right? No, I guess not. I guess some things that aren't visible directly, because it makes sense. You don't want to change it. So there are some values that are not visible. But anyway, the humanoid should have a health bar. And when that happens, it basically drops the person's health, the person that hit it, specifically whoever touches it with whatever foot, hand, or whatever, it drops the health to 0. So then that just happens to be the case here. Oof. Okay. So that's what happens. Now, there is a case where you don't have to and you don't want to change code while you're running the script. That's kind of a big no-no because you can do a lot of changes, but that's never going to actually save unless you remember to copy and paste it back into the non-running state of the game. So I'm going to go back here and I'm going to adjust some stuff here. Instead of that, I'm going to do minus equals to 20. Um, which I'm gonna also comment this out. There we go. It's because we don't need two versions of the same code. Come on. Okay. So I'm gonna now do minus equal because this is another way you can actually not quite kill yourself in a single hit, but you're essentially just taking points away. Well, that's very quick though. How about a little bit less? Ah, I keep pressing Control S like this is actually gonna save the same way that everything else saves. Right? All right. See, we're still alive, but we got some health down. That's pretty fast, though. The next one's going to be instant because we didn't change the next one. And that's a little thing, too. Each one of these has its own script. So this one that we just analyzed controls only this one block. If we go to the next one, well, that has its own script, too. And then this one. And then that one. So maybe we like this one better without the instant kill. So what we would basically do, this is the one with the show and explore. Yeah, that's the one. So if we like this one better than the others, all we have to do is really just copy the KillBrick itself. And now we can replace the other ones with the one we just modified. And now both of these will be the 5 health subtraction versus just the instant death. All right, cool. So that's one of them. These work, oh, there's one of the KillBricks. These should work the exact same way. They're just flat. Yep, same exact thing. And then there's the jumping bit here, trampoline. Let's analyze this real quick. Shouldn't be too crazy either. Yeah, same thing here, but notice that now it's actually an up or a Y value. It's the same thing as our conveyor, except conveyor was on the Z-axis. Now our Z-axis is 0, but our Y-axis is a number that we are setting by the configuration, which means Y is up. So that's how you make a thing, someone go jump upwards, which is pretty nice. Um, there was also, I wanted to see if I have, that's it for this, but I did want to check one thing, because I had some students that played around with some of these and I was teaching them how to do like a full out moving obby. So let me see if I have some of my old students on here still. Da-da-da. Oh, my recent experiences shared with me. Complete the hobby for free. Yeah, this was one of them. Oh, was my little brother actually. Where's all my other students? Hmm, maybe they stopped sharing with me. Sad face. Yep, this is the one we did. We started off with the basic. So if you want to see what that looks like, well, some of them move, right? I think. No, he definitely made his own. None of them are actually moving. Oh man. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Not what I wanted to go through. That's cute. Forgot about that. But man, I had another student that we had some moving obbies happening. Was it Noah? It might have been Noah. Let's check it out. Migrates Project Legacy Chat System, which will be, I mean, it's not like we're going to be using that for anything specific. I'm pretty sure this was it. Oh, yeah? Oh, yeah. I think so. And he expanded on it, I believe. Let's see. Oh, buddy. Oh, yep. What am I doing here, though? Did he make objects go towards the player? That's annoying. Why is it doing that? Why are you doing that? What a troll. Okay, well, that's not fun. Okay, what? I'm gonna remove that spawn. That's a weird spawn. This spawn. Okay, not the whole thing. Okay, so another thing I forget to mention is if you want to select one small thing out of a lot of big things, because sometimes when you group things into one big folder or grouping, like lab, oh, that's nice, he has his own lab. Then you're essentially gonna have this, um, what did he make in his lab? Now I'm curious. What is that part that keeps following me? Not even sure. Then you hold the Alt button so you can select that particular thing and you turn it off. Or you, hold on, you hold Alt and you click to select that from the specific menu. And potentially got to take both of these out. See play again? We're going to go back to the start. Oh my God, he literally did make this object that just hunts you down. That's hilarious. Hold up, are you kidding me? Just to make things more difficult, you have this giant brick just haunting you around the whole thing. Oh my God. Oh my God. Is this following? Wait, is it done? Is it underneath? It's probably underneath, isn't it? No, okay. Okay, there we go. So there's some movements there. All right, so do I want to go all the way through with this? Yeah, I guess. Let's go. Let's see what he did. So that's the basic one we actually started with in our video with slight adjustment. So there's a conveyor belt left, right? Yeah, that's to the left, to the right, and then of course the blocks to kill you. And then we got these guys. Oh. Oh, come on. So he expanded this to a much larger level. Is nice. Glad he played around with it. Oh, come on. I didn't have to go backwards. Meh. Okay, maybe I should just, let me see. Find the pattern. Okay, not to the right. And he gives me a nice little save here. Very nice. What's this do? This is a troll, I must swear. Okay, no swearing. Okay, didn't I die on that? Interesting. The first one didn't quite kill me. And then this. Oh, that's annoying. Oh, come on. Very. Oh, nice and frustrating. Oh, gosh. I think I'm just gonna go teleport over there. Why am I doing that one? Come on. That was fine. That was not fine. I guess if I like kind of just swipe my foot over, no? Okay. No, I guess not. Come on. Nope. That almost got me. I saw the red. Bull. Oh, come on. Yeah. Oh. Yep. All right. So instead of having to do that all day, mm, oh, he made the health. He made the health even though you instantly die. That's funny. That's a weird one. But what were the rotating ones? I guess it's these guys here. So let's take a look at what they look like. Oh yeah, it's that part again that's haunting me. Come on, kill me now. What? Hello? I'm coming down from the top. Okay then. Well, that's a thing. There's no way. That doesn't even make sense. Anyway, how does that work? Let's see. Rotation's a little um choppy, but that's because the mathematics is very small. So you've got this part here, this longer part. They're all separate pieces, so of course you're gonna organize them specifically by what you kind of identify them as. These are all moving, so I guess you put them in the same. And I'm gonna look at the which one? Which one's this one? Moving. No, okay, so notice how this one select all of them. Just clicking on one of these selects all four of them or whatever. I'm gonna alt click this big one just to select that one in detail and then open this up. Yep, so this is a bit more on the C-frame components stuff. Wait time, max distance. Can I decrease the wait time to make it smoother? Because a computer can think millions of times a second. So we always want to make sure. I'm going to get hit by that part again. That we essentially use smaller numbers if we want to make things smoother. Oh, okay. It's not the kind of wait time I wanted to see. So I got to play with the geometry a little bit further. What? So much chaos. So the wait time made that happen. It made one of them move very quickly. So that's not exactly what I wanted to do. Let me see if I can change the script here. I don't think it's going to do anything though, is it? Is it going to slow it down? No. It's already loaded, so any changes in the code won't actually change the current load. So, okay, fine. Max distance 10. So there's your kind of movement processes, but I'm not going to go through all of this. This is pretty intense mathematics, give or take, depending on the last class you finished. But I don't want to essentially go too far into the math here. But basically, you've got angles for rotation, and again, back to vector 3 for movement. So those are the types of C-frame modifications we do to basically create some sort of movement, dragging around, um, position movement, basically. So the pad dot position plus the new position based on R, X, Y, and Z movement options. And part, maybe I gotta change this one so it's something smaller. Rotate part. Okay, what I can't change it here, I gotta stop it. Go back to script. Oh, okay, it did actually change. It doesn't always do that, but luckily it did this time. So let's play back again and get smacked by that part. The magical part of annoyance. Okay, bye-bye. Yeah, that does look nicer. So that 0, 1 worked much better. That's sad. I bet you if I jump in between those, I'm gonna get like pinched into the air. Let's do that. Testing, testing, testing. Nope, wrong way. Nope, just being put inside. I don't know why there's two of them though. Anyway, that's a little bit on it. I don't know how he makes it go all the way over there. Maybe it's incomplete. I don't know what happens all the way over there. Just more obby stuff. Maybe that's where he stopped. Oh, I didn't notice that. Anyway, cool stuff. That's how you start with coding, right? And then these guys are health packs, which you don't really necessarily benefit from in this game because you die instantly for most cases. But in the same way that the humanoid can lose points by stepping on the red, a health pickup works in the opposite manner. You plus equals 100 instead of minus equals the 5. And it's only one big health pickups because you only touch it once and it goes away. And then after it's used, you basically have a transparency of 1 and then can collide as 0. So you can't actually use it again until potentially you wait 5 seconds and then you undo it, which then makes it basically pop back up. But then you'd have to readjust these also. To true to make it pop up again, and then health transparency to 0 so you can see it again. So it's not transparent. But these are commented, so they don't work. I guess he doesn't want that functionality. But in the end, yeah, that's basically what you would do instead of removing from the player. In this case, health pickup again, touched, dot connect. Health is the script parent. You keep this as a kind of what we call a debounce. It's something that keeps track of whether something has been used or not. And once it is being used, you basically used false. You kind of want another thing here. You want and used equals false because you don't want it to be used twice. Um, when it's in false mode. Oh, when it's used false. When it's true, right? So when it's true, you don't want to accidentally pick it up again while it's invisible. But even though the can collide is basically there to remove it. But still, always having a debounce helps because we actually changed that back to false after the 5-second mark if the functionality was reusable, which means that you'd be checking for two things. Not only if the player is touching a health pickup, but if that particular health pickup has been used is equal to false, meaning it hasn't been touched yet. Because when it's first touched from being untouched, it's going to be true, and then it's going to disappear. Um, if you leave the can collide to true, then you can still pick up the health even though it's invisible. So keep that in mind if it still works, even though you don't see it. Those are a couple of indiscrepancies that can happen with some programming. So bugs, right? Keeping in mind that playing around with code can always kind of give you some cool features, and bugs that eventually would be pretty cool as features. So keep in mind all the little adventures you go through. But yeah, that's it. So that's actually one of my students a long time ago. I'm very impressed with what he did, playing around with a bunch of little things over here. What these do? Ah, right, teleportation. Ah, that's for another set. That's for another um class or video. I think I've gone pretty far, pretty long with this one. So I hope that gave you a little bit of an intro to how to use code in Lua, how to use coding in Lua coding. Um, Couple of factors that we didn't go too much into is the local, again, we did go into. Local defines a variable only within the file itself. Function defines a group of code that's going to be combined together under a name, similar like a variable that you can reuse over and over. But in this case, we're only using once inside of the connect, right? Um, and then the function has to have an end factor here. And if will also have an end as well. So these kind of have like a beginning and end. Normally in most programming languages, they function as open and closed brackets, but this is kind of a mixture of like a Python type of language where you're using a lot of indentation to organize your code. So make sure you do as well. I'm not sure if it's completely necessary, but it definitely helps make it look better than if it looked like this. That just doesn't really help organize what's what, right? So make sure you just use indents. It should automatically do it for you. So keep the indentation, and if you kind of mess something up, make sure you fix your indentation. Because again, the cleaner your code, just like the more organized your code and the more organized your workspace is, the more useful and fun you're gonna have in your adventures programming all kinds of stuff. So consider that. We'll do more videos futuristically on other kind of projects. Potentially check out a look at one of the other templates that are available to everyone so everyone can have access. This one, of course, is a student of mine, so you're not going to have access to this obby that he created, but you will have the initial obby that we started off with, and hopefully you'll be able to recreate something like this now knowing a little bit of extra code. And feel free to use this video as a reference. Anytime you need to make your own obby, look at the code that we've gone through in this video and play around with it. And that's it. Make sure you like and subscribe. I keep forgetting to say that because I'm not used to it. I'm not a good streamer. And also, like, I don't want to repeat it all the time. But make sure you like and subscribe. It's going to help me out a lot. And it's going to motivate me to make more videos. And more consistently. I'm kind of on and off here and there now when I get a good idea. I'm not really forward planning yet, but if I get a lot of demand for a lot of people to get specific video types out there, leave a comment, let me know what you want to see. Um, then I'll be able to even plan forward and create some videos that I can actually continuously pump out on a daily basis. But in another case, if you do want to learn more about Roblox programming, make sure you go to my Patreon, Super Scholar Chris MIA. You can look up Christoph on Google or Christoph Chris MIA or Super Scholar Chris MIA, or you can just look at this thing down here. It's going to give you everything you need to know. It's superscholar.xyz. Don't worry about Fathom Computing. That's if you want an actual project in programming, whether it's a server, MySQL database, etc. There's the Patreon right over there floating around. So yeah, if you need any one-to-one tutoring, assistance, learning, um, guidance, everything, you kind of see everything that's being scrolled right here. So that's why I don't want to say it because it's been kind of scrolling along over here. But if you do need any help, I'll be happy to help. Um, as a tutor, right? As a one-to-one session that's done remotely at one of my locations that I support, which honestly, just do Patreon. That's the best place to go. It's the cheapest price I offer as well. You can basically get started for $20 a month for a single hour. That's it. Um, and you can start off with that hour, and I basically still help you with non-session stuff. So we can go for an hour session, and then you can still message me and write to me and stuff, and I'll send you screenshots, and we can communicate based on that stuff, so long as you're within that membership of the $20 range. So you get basically a month of 1 hour session with me. Um, and then anytime you want to communicate, send me a question. I'll be able to respond, potentially give you some screenshots, code snippets, or something that I can find that can help. And that's it for now. We'll make more videos in the future. Hope you like this one, and happy coding.